Good evening and welcome to the Italian Impact Podcast. I am your co-host, Steve Stefano Mancini, and as always, I have my good and dear friend Claudio with me. Claudio, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Steve. As always, appreciate being on the show. We have two very, very special guests. One, Dr. Robin Cole. He is an author of the new book, Lessons Behind the Steel Curtain, and he is also the Vice President, Economic Workforce Development and Career Technical Education at Monroe Community College, and an old friend of mine who is just the best. Nobody has one bad word to say about this young man. He was a great player, number one draft pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1977, two-time Super Bowl champion, 1984 All-Pro linebacker, 1984 Pro Bowler, entrepreneur, and again, a great guy and a great dresser, Mr. Robin Cole. Robin and Dr. Robin Cole, thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you.
And I had to include snappy dresser. And I'm sure Dr. Cole's a snappy dresser, too, if he takes after his dad.
Well, my line of work, I wear suits every day, so I'm pretty snappy.
All right. There you go. There you go. All right, let's start it off first. Dr. Cole, what made you say, I'm writing a book about all these things that my dad taught me?
You know what? I've always wanted to do something with my father. And it's funny, my wife says, your dad is like your hero. And he really is. So just out of all the years that we spent together, and from seeing him play to just raising me into the man that I am today, and just hearing the great things people say about him, I just really wanted to write this book. I really wanted to just share just some of the lessons that I've learned and some things that I saw, and share it just with a lot of individuals. So, it was a labor of love. It took a process, but it was something that was just always inside me that I wanted to do.
Now, Robin, the things that you taught your son, the things that you live your life by, obviously, people would right away say they were from Coach Noel or your coaches in college or high school. But did it start back further, maybe when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah. It started way back further. We talked about that simply because, Pittsburgh Steelers, it's a corporation that's known. It's a team that's known. It's an entity that's known by a lot of people all over not only the town of Pittsburgh, and also the state of Pennsylvania, but it's known throughout the United States and throughout the world. But it started sooner than that. It started earlier than that. I can remember the very first time that I came from a football game, the very first tackle football game that I played, and I came from that game. I injured myself. I messed around and hit a kid so hard that I hurt myself more than I hurt him. And after I hit the guy, I heard the people in the stands still screaming like something was still going on. I thought the guy was down on the ground in front of me. But I hit him, and he bounced off, and he kept running, and I kind of knocked myself out a little bit. And then by the time I got to my knees, I looked up, and he was still running down the field, 65 yards. I finally went my way to the sideline. The coaches were screaming and hollering. The coach didn't want to look at me after I got to the sideline. And I said, the trainer came. I said, "You all right?" I said, "Well, I'm a little hurt. I think I jammed my neck." And then I sat on that sideline for a few other plays, and I was saying to myself, I didn't really sign up for this. I was a pretty good baseball player.
I didn't know that.
And I started talking myself into how good a baseball player I was. And I said, you know what? I don't know if I need this football stuff or not. And so I was thinking of the story, what kind of story I was going to have when I got back to my house with my mom. And so I got back to the house with my mom, and I thought about, because I had to catch 2 buses to get back home. We had to take the bus back because we were visitors at one of the other high schools, and this was my sophomore year. And so I had to catch the bus back to the school, and then from the school I had to catch another bus to come home. And I figured out by that time, or I thought by that time, I would have a good enough excuse to tell my mom so she would understand that I wasn't going to play any more football. I was going to work on my baseball game. I got to the house, and I still didn't have it together. So I walk in the house, and I said, "What she want to ask me about? I'll have some time when I get inside the house. She want to ask me about the football game." I walk in the house, and her bedroom was to the left, right after we walked in the front door of the house. Walking to the living room, her bedroom to the left. And I walked past her, "Hey, hi, Mom." And she said, "Hi." And she says, well, how was the football game? And I thought, oh, shucks. I got to tell her about that. So I walked in there and said, Mom, I'm a pretty good baseball player. She said, well, yeah, I know that. And I started to create some excuses. And then my mom was wise and a wisdom that I didn't know about at the time. But my mother asked me, she says, yeah, you're a pretty good baseball player. And she said, I don't know why those big boys fall up on top of those big boys. I don't understand that game at all. And she says, she said, well, why did you go out for the football team in the first place? I said, well, I went out for the football team because I thought if I played well enough, I may be able to get a scholarship to go to college. Most of my friends are talking about going to college, and I didn't see any other way to do it. She said, well, that's good. That's fine. And she said, well, okay. And I started to walk out the room, and she said, well, let me ask you another question. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, did you get the scholarship yet?
It doesn't work like that.
No, I said, I'm thinking, you don't understand what it takes. So I'm like, well, let me explain. And then all of a sudden I take a step up. Well, let me explain to my mom what it takes to get a scholarship. My mom only went to the 5th grade. She don't understand how it works. So I started explaining to her how it works. She said, oh, is that the way it works? When I got done, I said, well, you have to be an all-leaguer. You have to be able to play. You have to be able to be as good as some of the other guys from the other team and blah, 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 blah. She said, oh, is that the way it works? I said, yeah. She said, oh, I just wanted to know if you got the scholarship yet. No. Think about this more. Oh. And now I'm back in the room, and my grandmother lived with us at the time, and she heard the whole conversation. And my grandmother was pretty good, see, because my grandmother knew everything that was going on in the neighborhood anyway, whether she was there or not. I didn't know how she did that, but she was good at it. She walked back to the bedroom where I was, and she says, son, I just heard you talk to your mom in there, and she says, can I share something with you? And I said, yes, ma'am. And she says, this is the first time I ever heard this. She says, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly until you can learn to do it well. Anything. Mm. So right there, I kind of started putting these pieces together. And I realized that, like a lot of our young people today, we try to quit doing something before we do anything. But we have to do something before we quit doing something to be able to do the things that we want to do in the future. And so some of these things started to come together for me back then. What is it going to take to compete? What is it going to take to be one of the best? And so along the way, in learning those processes, as I built and worked at it, my mindset was always, wow, you have to be able to teach this to somebody else. You can't give it to them all, but you have to be able to teach it to somebody else. And how do you go about doing it? It's a long process.
Now, okay, Robbie, let me ask you a question real quick on that, because, obviously later on you have a son. How did all that influence the way you raised your kid? Because like you said, there's certain things you can't teach certain things,
Yeah. So, and some of this is in the book that Robin got hold, and he has a terminology for this. But how do you teach something that just is not really it's not a tangible? Okay, some of it's a feeling, some of it's invisible. That kind of in the beginning it's not natural, but then it becomes natural after repetition, over and over and over again, to where it snaps and it makes sense. To where all of a sudden you're able to, a brand new person, you're able to not read their mind, but be able to step with them the way that they want you to step, or the way that that they're in the way that they're headed. You can step in stride. It'll take you long to make that adjustment.
Now,
it's almost like you're developing a team, or you're developing a band in this process. the instructor is saying, okay, we want you to do this. Some people will pick it up right away.
Mm-hmm.
Some people would take a couple of days to pick it up. Some people would take a couple of weeks to pick it up, and then some kids would take years to pick it up.
Right. Well said.
Okay.
Now, Dr. Cole. I'm sorry, Robin. Go ahead.
And during that process, it's just repetition, thinking about it over. See, there's a say that you have to see it before you can be it,
Right.
and you have to be it before you can have it.
Now, Dr. Cole,
Okay.
let me ask you this. Your dad
Yeah.
obviously played football. How did you transfer the football analogies, stories to business, and how did it help you?
I tell people a lot of things that I learned in life I take from sports. And from my dad, from my head coach in college, Joe Walton at Robert Morris University that I went to. And when I looked at, those concepts of sports, and I have one quote that I say in the book, I tell individuals that work for me, I said, we're not a family. Family, you can talk to family any sort of way, anything can happen, you're still related, you're still family. I said, we're a high-performing team. But one thing about a team, I had team members that are closer than brothers, that are closer than family. And in order for us to be successful, we have to implement those things. So my approach was always a team mindset. It was always about the culture. Now, I was a part of winning cultures. My dad was a part of the winning culture with the Steelers. I was a part of winning culture at Robert Morris University. We won, 4 conference championships. We were, in 1999, we were the national champions, 1AA mid-major. So I came from that winning sort of environment that I had been blessed in. And I just started to utilize those tools. Even what Dad was mentioning before about how do you learn things. I talk a little bit about tacit knowledge, what I call it. And that's just when things just become a feeling. After a while, it's not about knowing the play, it's about knowing the players, the rhythm and the movement. And that's the same thing when you're talking about leadership. When I'm working with individuals, there's a rhythm, there's a movement on how to lead. There's a way to bring people together culturally. And how to identify, I always tell people, putting the right players in the right place to be successful. And that's the same thing I do in my job in workforce development. When working not only with just my team, but working with industry, business, with political individuals and politicians, is identifying what are you good at and how can I put you in a position to be successful and for the betterment of the team. And that's the approach that I've just always taken. That's just the way I've always thought, system thinking, strategically thinking when I develop things.
Let me kind of follow up on that. When you're younger, obviously, you're watching your dad here later, and not too far out of that, and then you go play here. By the way, we're recording from Robert Morris University. If it makes you feel any better.
Oh, alma mater.
There you go. So let me ask you a question though. Is there a point in your life where you thought, based on where you come from and what you're doing, that you said that's just not going to be my path? Because what you're doing now, you're obviously very successful, highly educated, and I'm not saying that that's not what you wanted, but was there a point where you thought you were going to go left and you ended up going right?
Well, yeah, it's interesting when I go on interviews, people kind of ask me, how did you go from sports to what you're doing now? So when I went to Robert Morris University, my undergrad, I have all 3 of my degrees from Robert Morris, my bachelor's, my master's, and my doctorate of science in information systems and communications. But my undergrad was business sports management. I was a dual sport athlete at Robert Morris. I played in the offensive guard for the football team. I threw shot put, disc, and hammer for the track and field. And then I was a grad assistant coach after that. And when I was going through that, I knew I loved sports and I loved the game. But, I had been Robin Cole Jr. my whole life. I kind of felt like I kind of want to get out of this shadow of my father, in a sense. So I was like, at first I thought I was going to work in sports. I was sports management. I thought maybe I worked for an NCAA or work for a sport organization with sport team. But right out of grad school, I got offered a position at Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania as a professor. And I still didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in life, but I was like, okay, a bird in the hand is better than one in the bush. Let me try this out. And it kind of just ended up being my calling. So I moved farther and farther away from the sports realm, the sports field, but those lessons and those values were still inside of me. But then I just utilized it in higher education. So I went from being a professor then to get into the administration side of the house. And that became just a part of my leadership aspect of myself.
Now,
I've always been a leader on the field.
Now I want to
Being a
follow
leader
up
for
on
the
that.
community.
No, you mentioned something very good. I want to pick up on, because that's an interesting challenge. I think people don't appreciate is being the son of someone, say, who was successful in sports, and now it's oh he's gonna take after his old man. He's gonna do this, and when you don't, they look at you and they go, well, did you just not have it? Well, you know what? You got to live your own life. Because I like what you said. I don't want to live in his shadow. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that's not still your father. I kind of like that because I think that especially the successful athletes, I do think in a weird way, there's almost more pressure put on you. You see, your dad already made it. He had already won the championships. Now they're like, okay, son, what do you got? Oh shit, I'm coming from that lineage, and now what do I got to prove? Did you ever feel like you had to prove anything, or were you that just never entered your mind?
I think you just naturally do. I mean, I think my dad's a successful football player. I think it's probably anybody who's following their father who's successful in any sort of field. You do feel like, okay, am I matching up? Am I good enough? Even when I decided not to continue on football after college, my dad still told me, he goes, you could have kept playing. You were good enough to keep playing. And I was like, yeah, Dad, I just kind of didn't want to. And I knew then, and this was being around the game and respecting the game, I enjoy playing because of the competition aspect, and I'm still a competitive person in my professional life, but I didn't love the game like that in order for it to be my job. And I knew that. And in order to be at the level he is, to be successful, any of those professional football players, you have to love it. There's a certain sacrifice to it. And I didn't have that desire and fire inside of me. And it's being honest with yourself and realizing that.
I want to jump in. Oh, I'm sorry, man. I cut Claudio off of this because I want to go to Dad too on this one. And now you make a good point. You got to love it. But do you still feel like has gambling and money taken the passion out of the sport? And that's for both of you.
And, gambling and money taking the passion out of it?
From the player's perspective.
No, I don't think so. And you think of when we think about professional sports, we think about how many individuals really get the opportunity to be a part of it. It's not that many of us. So often when we talk about Hall of Famers, golly, how many people are in the Hall of Fame?
Not many compared to how many played, right? A big deal.
Not that many to how many players. But then when you think about how many players, golly, I'm living in Tampa. There's more doctors than it is players playing in the National Football League right here in the area of Tampa and St. Pete.
Right.
It's not that many of us that get the opportunity to do what we do.
No, it's definitely a very small. I'll call it a fraternity with respect to the NFL.
And I share with other players often. Often I'm at an event and I'm with players and guys would, we stand up and people say, well, we're going to introduce these players and we introduce ourselves. And, I always, it's not all the time, but often I get a guy to stand up and introduce himself. Oh, I just played 5 years. And I would stand up behind him and say, hey, man, 5 years in the National Football League, you did something that most doctors couldn't do. Okay? Only the President of the United States, you got more politicians than that. You did something, or you were a part of a team, or you were part of a group that were able to do something that a lot of people don't get the opportunity to do. Don't look down on it. Okay?
Robin, a two-part question. Number one, I'm sure, because I'm still waiting for my book to come in from Amazon, but I'm sure there was some lesson that Chuck Noll said and or did that stuck with you. And number two, what player, what teammate did something or inspired you or motivated you that maybe a story is in the book? So Coach Noll and a teammate.
Number one, as far as a teammate was concerned, L.C. Greenwood and I, we became brothers. Even though the rest of the guys were like my brothers, but L.C. was the guy that really put me under his wing and taught me the area of Pittsburgh and how to walk and talk like a professional person. Chuck Noll had so many sayings. Some of his sayings I still don't know the meaning of. Okay. When it came to Chuck, and some of the things that he had shared with us, there was just so much of it. But Chuck really believed that he could take any player and helps him reach a level of success if he can work and will work hard enough. But there are some players that are out there that will come into this league and that have something that's a little bit different or a little bit special. And when you find somebody like that, then you take that player and you try to sprinkle some of that twinkling dust of that special player among some of the other players that you have on your team. Because players will get motivated behind that player that has helped you to take it to the next level. And a lot of that was going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We had, a Lynn Swann that came in the league in the time he came in the league. The Joe Green that came in the league in the time that he came in the league. I can remember Joe Green making a motivational speech back in 1977 after we lost against the Denver Broncos. Joe got on the plane and was screaming and hollering at us all, and we didn't know what we were screaming about. But we realized right quickly that we lost the game. But he talked about preparation. He said, and now this is my rookie year. Myself, Tony Dungy, Jim Smith, Tom Beasley, Ted Peterson, and Burt Winston. It was, we were all rookies. And Joe stood up and he said, "Shut up!" Told everybody on the plane to shut up. And Joe says, "Some of you didn't come to camp ready." And thought about, started thinking about what he was saying and what he was talking about. Some of them didn't come to camp ready. Next year, every single one of us is going to come to camp ready. He said, some of you guys that don't think or feel like you don't want to be a part of this team, I want you all to get off the plane right now, and we're not going to take off until you get off the plane. And we're in Denver, just got on the plane. And he said the pilot is not leaving until you get off. He said, everybody's just looking around at one another, and he continues to say that next year, if you come to camp, report to camp, you come to camp ready. Now, here, as a rookie, I understood about rookie year, you got to come to camp ready. But normally, you would think that you come to camp to get ready. So many players come to camp to get ready. They didn't have the off-season program. Okay, they're ready themselves for camp. But normally, when you get to camp, that's when more things happen. Your preparation, your timing, all of that comes together. But now he's talking about us coming to camp ready. Okay? So that means that takes the whole off season to prepare yourself to get ready for camp and get ready for the football team. And that helped me understand that sometimes in some teams, they're spending their time getting ready. Some teams report ready, and as the season progresses, some teams, they never seem to get it together. So they're never ready.
Robin, not to downgrade anybody, but if you remember Wayne Fonts for the Lions, they would always get off to a slow start, 0-6, 2-7, and then all of a sudden, mid-season, they would make a run for the playoffs. And I always thought that maybe they didn't come into camp ready. Maybe they got into camp to get ready, and by that time, they didn't come in, with the tires. What did they say? Hit the ground running. Am I wrong about that with Fonts? And again, no, everybody does their own thing, but that's kind of what I always got from what you just said.
Yeah, well, you got to have a whole lot of luck on your side. Okay, because remember what happened in 1976 when Pittsburgh Steelers reported and lost the first 4 games?
Yeah.
Well, won and then lost the next 4. And that's what Joe was referring back to. He was referring back to that because Joe and I were roommates my rookie year. So I started asking questions. What are you talking about? And then as I started to go backwards, I said, oh, that was the year that they went to the playoffs. They could have won the Super Bowl, but by the time they got to the playoffs, everybody got hurt.
Yeah.
Rocky Clyde was hurt. Franco Harris was hurt. You had no running back. The quarterback even got hurt. Terry got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Now guys are getting injured.
Yes.
After the 1977 season, we came back in 1978 and won the Super Bowl
Right.
because guys came ready.
Now,
The speech was so good that we won 2 Super Bowls.
it stuck with you. Now, Dr. Cole, how about you? How about coaching-wise and a teammate that maybe you included in this book that inspired, motivated you?
So, throughout the book, I do have some quotes and some things from Chuck Noll that I pulled from what Dad was saying, and be able to take some of those concepts that he had that messed up to then teaching some of the organizational lessons that I have in here. But one, I think, Coach, definitely Coach Joe Walden. Coach Joe Walden, taught me a lot about life. Even when I was a grad assistant coach for him, he taught me even more. And he used to say, winning is a habit. Unfortunately, so is losing. And that quote always stuck with me. And he always said, football is a game a lot like life. And when I talk about what I've done in my life, I implemented a lot of those things that he talked about football, about adaptability, about, the grind every day, about focus, about, being a good teammate, collaborating with individuals. And then, just teammates, when I think about that I played with that really just stick out, to me, is Hank Fraley. Hank Fraley was the offensive tackle for Robert Morris. We played on the line together. Me and Hank came in together. He's the O-line coach now for the Detroit Lions. And Hank was just somebody that was always professional, always, grinded. Somebody that, every play, just dominated. And when we lined up on the line together, we were both on the left side together our junior year, and then they kind of split us up, and they switched me over to the right side of guard. But, I just enjoy playing with them. And, one thing about O-line, it's a brotherhood. So you really become a close-knit group because everything you do in O-line, you move together. It's like you've ever heard that, like Dad mentioned the analogy of a band, one band, one sound. Every step, how we move. In order for the play to be successful as a line, we move together. We're almost nameless in a sense, but the trenches are so important.
Hey, I want to go back to something you said. Man, you were saying some good stuff for me. I like what you said about winning is a habit and losing is a habit. Now, I want to talk about that because I'm going to pick on an organization here. I'm going to pick on Cleveland. Okay. Cleveland just doesn't get it right. And there's a myriad of reasons, but I do believe there are certain organizations that just they can't get out of their own way. And I'm picking on the Cleveland Browns here, but I'm from Pittsburgh. I can do that. But you wonder, you say, there's a lot of talent in some of these clubs, and you kind of said it. It's almost like they expect to lose. It's almost like they expect the wheels to fall off the bus. They expect it. And now, how do you get people, because you guys are motivational speakers, you guys inspire people. How do you get people to break that, though, especially when you look at whether it's an individual or whether it's an organization? They've been doing that for so long. You say, man, how do you get out of that? Do you just do what Detroit did and just fire everybody and start over? Or, what do you do to break that mold for a person to break that? And this is for the doctor first, then for the dad.
A lot of people talk about how, culture kills strategy any day of the week. And it's true. There's some cultures that are so embedded. And when I looked at this book and writing and talking to my dad about the Steelers, that's one thing I pointed out when I was talking to him. I said, the Steelers are a successful organization, period. Whether it's like a Walmart or Costco, JP Morgan, whatever it may be. And I said, so what is that? It's from the top down. It's something that's developed culturally. And it's the expectations that are set. It's how you bring people together. One thing that Chuck Noll, I kind of talk about in the book, kind of a quote, is that, he didn't adapt to the players. He developed the system. And then he found players that adapt and fit that system. And a lot of times those are things you got to do. When you're talking about, the Cleveland Browns, it seems like, in a sense, you're just throwing individuals in there, players. How many multiple quarterbacks have they had? What is the culture there? What is the culture? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to establish? And then who are you fitting in there to make that happen? And that's why even when they saw some success with Baker Mayfield, once they start losing again, then it's like, okay, it's time to mix it up. Okay. And
I was about to mention his name, by the way. They go for a year or two with him, and they got rid of him. Correct. He wasn't the problem, and you just nailed it. It was the culture's the problem, and as soon as it starts to fall off, they got to change. They never give anybody a chance. And I don't want it to be by Cleveland, but I think that's indicative of organizations and people. They don't ride the storm to get to the calmer weather. They just expect it to be raining all the time.
It's organization, cultures, relationships, marriages, all of it. You know, what is it? If you don't have anything specific that you're standing on, or you're setting the standard, and Coach Tomlin, the standard is the standard. That's there's so much truth in that if you truly follow.
I'm gonna hold my comment on Coach Tomlin because I'm just gonna hold my comment on that. But I want to hear the dad. You know what?
It's a great quote.
It's a good quote. I'll leave it. Yes, right. It's a great quote. But the standard is 9 and 8. All right, this is for the dad. All right, your turn. I want to hear your thoughts on that. How do you break organizations and people from bad habits?
I was getting ready to say that. The culture is the culture. I mean, the coach is standard, and that didn't just start with Coach Tomlin. I mean, it was a great thing that he saw that there and he felt that there. Okay, because Tomlin was from the area originally. Okay, he saw it there. He saw that that team, our team, the standard was high. Be the best every year. Chuck Noll used to come in and start come to camp, and you come to camp ready. Okay, our first goal is to get to the playoffs. From the playoffs, the rest of it's going to take care of itself. The standard is high. Playoffs, being the best that we can possibly be, and then if we become the best that we can possibly be, with everything working together with the culture and everything else that was happening, we didn't have a lot of guys that were running the street. We had a couple of things that happened along the way with a few players that had some challenges. But when it came to that locker room, we didn't have any of those types of challenges in our locker room, or no problems in our locker room.
So how does an organization break that though? How does a Cleveland Browns, for example, we're picking on Cleveland, but how does a Cleveland Browns organization break that? If they said come up to our camp and talk to our players, what would you tell them?
It starts from number one. It starts from the top. The first thing is this: somebody has to be willing to reach out to bring somebody in that's willing to do that. That's willing to sit down and talk to the players, and willing that in talking to the players to also reach out to the players and to find out where they are. Like you said, when you have a program, you have to find people that fit. It's like now when I'm watching a football game, I watch teams and I look at a linebacker and I see a guy making plays in the wings running around the football field and I say, oh, he can play with us. Same thing with an offensive lineman. I look at them and I'm watching this guy come off the ball like Hank Fraley used to do. Now, the way we found Hank was working with me. I was the defensive line coach at Robert Morris College. Hank was over there doing scout team. I had Hank doing scout team and Hank's coming off the ball and I'm watching Hank. And I said, hey, you keep coming off the ball like that. He kept coming off the ball like that. I said, go get Coach. What was our offensive line coach, Robert? Bad Rad.
It was Bad Rad.
I said, go get Dan Radakovich and tell him to come over here. Watch this. And then watching this kid, I said, he needs to be over there. The next thing you know, that was his freshman year. Next thing you know, that's where it was.
Yeah. And I think just some tangible examples of you're saying is, you're trying to change the culture. So first thing you have to realize, okay, where are the successes in it? Where are you encouraging? So, developing those mentorship with those successes. Sometimes you have to, work with another team. When I've been at different institutions, sometimes you look at best practices. Sometimes you look within an organization and you look outside of, okay, this is operations on the football field, but is our marketing department doing well at the Browns? And I think the thing with the Browns is I don't know where any other wins are right there. So I think really what you have to start is you have to create right now, what is our standard? What is our mission? What is it that we're going to follow? Where is it we're trying to go? And we're setting up steps and procedures to follow that to the T. And no matter what happens, we're not wavering from that. We're going to ride it out. But you make sure that when you start from the beginning, the planning and the things you're putting in place, looking at the reflection of even when you did have wins, because there were some times the Browns had some winning teams. They almost made it to the Super Bowl. I think Denver Broncos had beat them. So, okay, go back to that reflection. What was it when you built those times of success? Analyze those things. Learn from those experiences. Bring back some of those guys that were some of the winners. look at some of that, that I call a cultural film study in a sense. Review past projects like his game tape. Review past things. What were we at from the top, bottom within the organization? What was working? What were those moments? What were those instincts? What were those collaborations? And what were those breakthroughs that we had? And then you have to start from there, because you're talking about with the Browns, they're at the bottom. You're starting from square one with that sort of organization, and that's what you're starting to see. Now, other teams where there was such a height of success, like for example with the Steelers. Once again, you have to go back. Where did we maybe move from some of those standards and different sort of things that we need to be doing? I told my dad a long time ago when the Patriots made their run, I said, all they did was take the Steelers blueprint and they ran with it. Chuck Noll, and you look at Belichick, a lot fans, they weren't raw guys, different things like that. Had a little personality, whatever, but they knew their system. They knew the players they wanted to bring in, the Bill Parcells sort of framework, and that's what they did. And no matter how we try to get so innovative nowadays, and I love innovation, AI, different things of that nature, there's still some things that are the basics, no matter what, and you have to stick to those things.
Okay, I'd like for both of you to tell us your favorite chapter in the book to kind of paint a picture of the book. We'll start with you, Dr. Cole.
Okay. So, I guess, when I look at the book and, kind of just to paint a chapter of the book, it's really looking at, I utilize some of the lessons from the Steelers, and I utilize some properties of steel itself. So I talk about ductility, tempering, different things that you can do with steel. But I have chapter 6, it talks about the second lesson of tempering. So, tempering is when you're strengthening the edge steel, and I talk about sharpening the edge and the power of experience and unspoken wisdom, and that's where I talk a little bit about that tacit knowledge that I mentioned before. And it's my favorite because I mixed a little bit of my experiences, but also a little bit with my doctoral research. And one quote that I put in there when you're talking about the Steelers and Troy Polamalu is one most important thing you could learn was to listen. And when you look at tacit knowledge, it's listening, observing, and you're applying, what you have done. And I talk a little bit about, those shared experiences, how those are things that, help individuals or strategic lessons, embedded culture. It's just a chapter that's just strong to me because I believe sometimes things, it just takes time. It takes repetition. It takes practice. There's the thing about wisdom, and that I've always just been just enamored by in a sense. I remember when I was 7 years old reading about King Solomon, the wisest man in the world. It's just something that's always stuck with me. I just said, I always wanted to have great wisdom. And when I learned what wisdom was, it's taking those experiences in life. And then when you're able to move and make decisions and think critically without having to think, when you're just implementing things that you've already now embedded in your DNA over years, and that's kind of like what this book, Lessons from Behind the Steel Curtain, is about. It's those years of being a son to my father. It's the years of being around those Steelers and hearing those stories and being around some of those guys growing up. Years of me playing ball and being at Robert Morris, and years of just my experiences as a professional. And that's what, why that chapter is so dear to my heart.
And Robin?
Mine would be number one, sacrifice, because for myself and the lesson that from my background, it's a little bit different than Robin's. I came from a family of 10 children. Grandmother lived in our home with 12, 13 people that lived in a 3-bedroom house, and it wasn't like a colonial like we have out in Pennsylvania, or one of those Tudors, or one of those. It was a settle for. And that was the one that my mom and dad just settled for. And it's set between two more settle for right there in Thompson, California. It was all we could afford. And so for me, it was sacrifice. What are you willing to do? What are you willing to sacrifice to become what it is that you want out of life? What are you willing to do? And then once I became a part of a team, it was trust. Okay, learning how to trust in my fellow man, learning how to trust in my players. When I was in college, I would trust in some of the players that I was, played with, but a lot of them didn't have a lot of them didn't have the talent. So a lot of times you would have to be trying to do more than what you could do. You did all you could do, and when I came to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I was a kid on my knees. I prayed about maybe one of these times I can play on a team that if we all do our jobs the right way, in the way they should be done, maybe we can win a championship. And I'll be darned if I don't end up with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that didn't just come from, that wasn't overnight. And it's just like, boy, you got lucky, you got dropped in. It was a lot of prayer time. It was a lot of working. And then once I became a part of that, I wanted the guys to know that I can be trusted and I can stand with you. Okay? Whatever you can do, I'm willing to do.
You know what? I'm gonna ask a final question because you know what? You just kind of made me think of something. This is the doctor. Let me ask you a question. If you had to describe your father in one word, what would it be and why?
That's a good question. One word. Just inspirational, I guess. You know, and to me, it's not inspirational because he played football and what he did on the field. My dad has always been someone that no matter what I did, he just always encouraged me. He always would say, "You can do it." He's always just guiding me. When I talk to business and industry now, we talk about things like soft skills or professional skills, however you want to label them. And I sat down and talked to business. Okay, so what are you telling me about these skills? And they would say, this, that, and the other. This is what we want from these workers. I said, oh, you mean things my dad taught me? Because I didn't learn that in school. Those are things my dad taught me, and he inspired me to be. So that's why I think, inspiration. He is truly my hero in a sense.
Now I'm gonna ask the dad something now. You talked about faith, and faith is very important to me, and I believe that when we recognize something greater than ourselves, it allows us to dig deeper and know that, hey, there's something more than this kind of shallow existence. I was gonna ask you to describe your son in a word, but I don't want to ask that. I want to ask you if there is one thing that you want your son to take from you, what would it be?
Oh, I think he may have already done that. Keep the pedal to the metal. Just keep the pedal to the metal and keep believing. Because if you think you can, you can. And after Henry Ford said, if you think you can't, you're halfway there.
That's right. Man,
okay, just keep making it happen. I can remember when Robin came to me and he said, Dad, I'm going to take a couple of years off because he had his master's degree. He said, I'm going to take a couple of years off and then I'm going to get married. And then I think I'll go back to school and get my PhD. And I said, oh, that sounds really good. But I think a better plan is to keep going, get your PhD, and then the rest of it will fall in place.
And now he's a doctor.
And I was one of the youngest ones come through the program.
He was the youngest.
Fantastic.
He was one of the youngest that you get his PhD. Most of the people in his class was 50 years old and older.
Hey, wait a minute. That's when I was. Hey, listen, I'm going to turn it back over to Claudio to kind of sign us out. But listen, I want to just say that, I don't know you guys very well, but I can tell you just from this conversation, you two are just wonderful people. And young doctor, I can't wait to come back and visit us here at RMU. In fact, I can't wait till both of you come visit us here at RMU. I'm looking forward to meeting you guys in person. So, by the way, I teach in that PhD program now, by the way. So I'm like, you need to come back.
I do. I was, Fred Cahoon was my.
Oh, no, Fred. He's still around. He's retired, but he's around. Damn, what a small world. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to Claudio.
Well, number one, I need you guys to tell me where people can get the book. Number two, Dr. Cole, I'm very proud of you. I met you years ago on the golf course, and what you've accomplished is absolutely fantastic. And just like your dad said, pedal to the metal. I tell my teams, if we're up 10, score 11. If we're down 10, score 11. Don't worry about the score. Just go out and play your heart out, and you've done that. And I have a feeling you're going to accomplish a lot more. Robin, I've always admired you. Yeah, terrific football player, all pro, all that. But how you treat people, and the other thing that I've always admired about you is that you went after things. You're a very successful entrepreneur, but you're a wonderful person. You are a giver with a huge heart, and I'm really blessed to call you friend. I know I haven't seen you in a while, but I think of you often, and you're an inspiration to many, many people, and I really hope this book, I hope people get the book and are impacted by it, because you've lived a terrific life and you still have more to do. Dr. Cole, you have accomplished a lot and you still have more to go. Your book will definitely have impact on people, and I'm grateful to you both to be on this show, and you're going to be on some of our other shows this week and next too, and I can't wait to have you on. So if you,
We look forward to it, Claudio.
all right, well, thank you. And,
Thank you for being the person that you are, Claudio. You know, you always had a place in my heart, and you will continue. And we got to catch up with one another. When next time I come out there and I have some time, let's have some lunch.
I would love to do that. You know what? There's a picture of you and I when I was about maybe 198. So I'm not going to put that picture up on the now I'm 158. So
Yeah.
I'm ready to go.
You're right.
But no, I appreciate you both, and would love to see you again for sure. And we'll definitely have some lunch. And finally, where can people get this great book?
Yeah, you can get the book on Amazon.com right now. You can just search under Lessons from Behind the Steel Curtain. And it's on paperback and also on Kindle and under Kindle Unlimited as well for those who have a subscription to Kindle, that you can go in there and you can just read the book page by page and take your own pace and take notes. And then also if you want to contact us and reach out to us, Lessons Behind the Steel Curtain, Steel Curtain Leadership is actually at gmail.com, Steel Curtain Leadership at gmail.com. And because we're writing a book, but also we're looking to go out and do some teaching, share some things that we've done and be able to do some coaching and help individuals just from the lessons we've learned, not only in our careers, but also just even lessons as a father and son in their relationship as well. So we're open to, coming out and sharing those different things and speaking, and those are some other endeavors we're doing as well.
That's great. And real quick, you guys don't know this. I wrote a leadership book, and a lot of it is based on things that my parents taught me. But real quick, I got to tell this story, Robin. You'll appreciate this. Well, first of all, Robin used to have an unbelievable event in New Mexico, golf event.
Oh,
Man,
yeah.
that was unbelievable. But anyway, you had one here one time, and you remember Bernard Swift Kick Robinson, obviously.
Yeah, oh yeah, Swift Kick.
Yeah, Swift Kick. He was a champion kickboxer. So he was a terrible golfer. I mean, terrible.
Oh, yeah.
He would swing and miss, hit it 250. So one time, Robin, it was myself, Swift Kick, a couple other people, and Randy Grossman. So Bernard swings and misses. All right. Then he swings again, and he misses. Then the third time he swings and misses, and Randy Grossman comes over to him, and he says, "Hey, Bernard, kick the damn ball." Everybody lost it. But those were great events, and I always appreciate you having us. They were fun. But
Yeah, we had a great time.
yes,
I got to
sir.
reach out to him. I saw him on Facebook here not too long ago.
Okay. Yeah, those were great events, but and everybody came because of you. So, but both of you, good luck with everything on the book, in business, and life. We appreciate you both, and really look forward to seeing you both soon. Thank you, and we'll be on some shows together here this week.
Sounds
Thank
good,
you. We
Claudio.
appreciate
Thank
the
you.
time.
Thank you.
God bless
Thank
you and the family, Claudio.
Thank you so much. God bless
Bless
you
you.
all. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, folks, we'll be right back after these messages.
Tune in to Sports Corner, hosted by Ralph Williams, along with Claudio Relsano, Smokin' Jim Frazier, and Luther Dupree Jr. every Saturday, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. on 1250 AM The Answer, 92.5 FM The Answer.
Ciao, Chrissy. Your Italian got so much better. Brava.
Grazie. It's because I learned the best way possible.
How so?
Well, I learned that with apps, grammar books, and even YouTube videos, I could only get so far. I had to immerse myself. I noticed I did best when I was in Italy visiting family. That's where my level really soared.
And wow, did it work?
Thanks. I became much more confident, fast. That's why I created Footsteps Through Time. It's an Italian language experience. You don't just take Italian classes, you immerse yourself in a real Italian village. With lots of fun activities and excursions, it's life-changing.
I see. So, no more boring grammar, impersonal apps, just real conversations, real culture, and delicious food, of course.
Exactly. I'm so excited about this. Learn Italian by actually becoming part of the local community for a week and living it. So if you've been dreaming of Italy and the language, check out Footsteps Through Time in Italy.com. Book now and join the experience.
Andiamo!
Thanks to Greater Pittsburgh Travel. For any of your travel needs, let Tom and the team at Greater Pittsburgh Travel know, and they'll take care of you. For more information, call 412-331-2244 or visit their website at www.greaterpittsburghtravel.com. Did your parents or grandparents ever talk about the Vietnam War? The Hardest Year, A Love Story and Letters During the Vietnam War, is an accurate portrayal of what life was like during the 1960s, a time of the draft, equal rights, and the anti-war movement. Follow newlyweds through their letters as they navigate 1 year of the war in Ocean Apart. The Hardest Year by Carol and William Wagner is available now wherever books are sold. And we want to thank the Calabria Club of Pittsburgh. If you're interested in learning more, you can find their contact information on Facebook at Calabria Club of Pittsburgh. Again, thanks Domenica and the team at the Calabria Club of Pittsburgh for your support. And we want to thank La Scuola d'Italia Galileo Galilei, the only nonprofit school in Pittsburgh endorsed by the Italian Consulate. If you're interested in learning Italian or have your children being immersed in the Italian culture and language, be sure to give them a call at 412-404-7070. And that's La Scuola d'Italia Galileo Galilei. We'd also like to thank Chris Gonzalez from the Knights of Columbus. If you have any questions about joining the Knights of Columbus, reach out to Chris Gonzalez at 412-605-9074.
Tune into the Ralph Williams and Tony Moreno Show every Saturday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., and every Sunday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on 1250 a.m. The Answer, 92.5 FM The Answer.
All right, welcome back. We didn't want to sign off without doing our due diligence and advertising. So, but I wanted to thank our great, wonderful guests and really nice gentlemen. They're not Italian, folks, but that's okay. We've talked about that before.
Well, you said that
We're going to bring good guests
yeah.
on the show, and I don't care where they're from. But
and they'll still have impact on you.
That's right. What great guys, though. Very nice guys. How long have you known them for?
I've known Robin since 2001.
You and I are going to have a drink. How you meet all these people?
Well, I'm a great guy.
No, for real.
Actually, I met Robin. My uncle knew him from Three River Stadium playing for the Steelers, but I didn't meet Robin then. I met him through a golf tournament, Christian Sports International. That's what it was. He was matter of fact, he took over those golf events from Christian Sports Center, him and Sid Bream. But I met a lot of these guys through that event. Mm-hmm. And then, again, the Pirates I've known since I was a little kid because my uncle worked there and I used to go to the locker rooms. But
now that's the Italian I want to hear. I got a guy. In this case, it was your uncle.
Yeah. Well, he used to work at Three River Stadium.
Got it.
And then the Steelers, the crazy thing is, though, people know I've said it enough times, Chuck Knox was like an uncle to me. And Chuck was the coach of the Rams, Buffalo, Seattle, and back to the Rams. So wherever he went, that's where I went. But let's just stick with the Super Bowl Steelers. That was from 73 to 77. Chuck was with the L.A. Rams. And the Rams were this much behind the Steelers. I'm talking about a hair, if they were at all. So I was not a Steeler fan at all. And here I'm Rocky Blyer, Robin Cole, and all the Randy Grossman, all these guys are friends, Louis Lips, but huge Ram fan. So it's crazy. Marv Kellum, God rest his soul, was a good friend too. So Franco, but yeah, I've been lucky. And you know what? They're good people. One time when we were going to New Mexico for this golf event. So we all kind of play here, but over there in New Mexico, it's like a who's who of sports. So I'm on the plane. I look over there. There's John Candelaria, Rocky Blyer, Robin Cole, all these guys. I'm saying, if this plane goes down, I'm the only one they're not going to mention. But my very first golf tournament.
There was some other guy in the economy class, but otherwise.
the first event that I was invited to was a Robin Cole. It was a Christian Sports International event. And it was Rocky Blyer, Robin Cole, guys that I grew up watching, right? And I wanted to get a hole-in-one every hole, man. I wanted to do great, and I did horrendous. Just did horrendous. It was a celebrity event. And
couldn't handle the pressure, could you,
Claudio? Well, no, I tried too hard. Too hard. So then Rocky Blyer came over to me, and he said, you know what, Claudio? Just relax. Just the way he said it. Just relax. And the last hole, if you win, you get an envoy if you get a hole-in-one. I hit it over the lake. It was a Quicksilver. And I got closest to the pin. I was a foot away from getting a hole-in-one. So instead of winning the envoy, I won a pullover jacket, which I still have. My wife said, I think we would have been better off with the envoy. But no, Robin's a great guy. And his son, I've known him, like I said, I met him years ago. And it's nice to see all the things he's accomplished.
That's good. Yeah. Any final events coming up?
Well, I do want to mention something real quick, but again, my book, Lead from the Heart Up, Not the Neck Up, How to Create a Positive Winning Culture on the Field and in the Office. You can get that on my website at claudiorelsano.com. Makes for a great Christmas present. And Sports Corner, hosted by Ralph Williams, Smoking Jim Frazier, Luther Dupree Jr., and myself, every Saturday, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. on 1250 a.m. The Answer, 92.5 FM. The Answer, once again, every Saturday, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. And my show, the Claudio Relsano Show, you can listen to at claudiorelsano.com. And we have a great group of guests. Ken Griffey Sr., Robin Cole's on there before, the late Roman Gabriel, Al Oliver, the late Rennie Stennett, Jim Rooker, Rocky Blyer, Dick Vermeil, Vince Papali, Vince Ferragamo, bunch of great guys. And Steve, I want to say this. You won an award recently. I just saw on the billboard here. Congratulations, but tell us.
Another academic award. I like it,
good for you.
but I tell you what, I appreciate that. Like we were explaining before, as a professor, we have to compete. When you're not tenured, you have to compete basically for your job until you're tenured. And so all of these little things are adding up. By the way, another thing I do want to mention is we got another award for the film. We're entered another international festival. To me, I'm a big proponent of when I win with teams. I love that. I really do. I know that sounds cheesy and cliche-ish, but it's not. I just think, and that is almost the epitome of what they were talking about today. When the team moves together like that, there is something magical. I mean, you can have an individual award, but when the team moves together like that, there's just something. I don't know, but I was really happy. We got into the it's the Isle of Palma, so it's over near Sardinia. But again, it's another international one. The fact that this documentary keeps getting into international film festivals, and then in some cases we are winning. Best documentary, best. I mean, that to me, that's the reflection when you put the right people around you. Because that's what I said, and I'm not picking on Cleveland.
Right people.
Right, but and that's why I'm not picking on Cleveland. But I just think, to me, that's just an example of just you had good people, but they weren't going in the right direction. And I'm glad he brought up Baker Mayfield. And I don't want to get into sports, but that's my point. They gave up on him. He wasn't in the right system. And now he's successful. So it wasn't the player. And so it's like when you do something and it's successful, so when you do other people, you put the right people in the system, because you could take one of those people, you could break them off, you could put them somewhere else, and they may not be successful. So that's why I said I'm very proud of the film awards, because I just feel like I put good people around me, and that was to me that was the bigger win of all of that. But again, we're getting ready to release the other one here in about another month. I don't have a choice. I got to go to Abruzzo, and I'm going to Italy to show it in Italy in December. That's got to be done in 6 weeks. So,
it's all right. Not a bad place to go.
No, not a bad place to screw up. That's for sure. But Claudia, last words.
Well, no. Again, congratulations on everything. And I've said numerous times, the old real estate line: location, location, location. I used to say good people, good people. Now I say the right people, the right people, the right people. Yeah. And those teams of the 70s, that era, there was some special people, but that Steeler team, special people who could play.
I still think, you know what, again, I don't want to make it about sports. Sometimes we're going to have to do a sports episode again, but I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know if I agree with the passion not being there. I think when they're getting there, the passion is there, but I think something happens to those players nowadays. I'm going to be honest with you, I can't stand football anymore. It is boring. You watch it between the flags, the commercials, the gambling commercials, the what's the odds? It's like, man, I just want to watch a game. Yeah. And there's something missing from it.
But to your point, what I think you're leaning towards, Fred Dreyer, the NFL player with the LA Rams in the 70s, who also became a well-known actor, Hunter. He said sometimes he just didn't want to play. Sometimes he didn't have passion for and the coaches hollering at him, nothing. But then he said, I saw my teammates and how psychotic they were, and how then we're going to
feed off each other.
They feed off each other. And I don't, I hate till we say that yesterday was better than today, but it is, in my opinion. But that Steeler era with Joe Green saying what he said,
1,000% better. Oh, absolutely.
Well, no, I'm not going to single anybody out, but who on this Steeler team is going to get into an airplane and say what Joe Green did?
Command the respect. That's it. Because you have some good players, but again, I don't believe that. I think the organization is living off of a legacy. I think at some point the air is going to come out of the tires.
No doubt. And for me, I've always known, I say at the beginning of the season, it doesn't take me long to see if I have a special team. But anyway, well, Steve, and thank you as always. Always thank the listeners of the show. We hope you enjoy the show. Hope you have impact. I hope we have impact on you. And as always, thank you, Mom and Pop. Talk to you guys soon.